indoor cycling has, over the last 10 years, gone from something that no one wanted to do to a whole riding discipline in its own right. One of the pioneers of that change was Zwift. Now, we've used the platform since it started, and we know how many of you do too. So we thought you might be interested to see how we ride on Zwift at home in our own time. Or in Dan's case, during work hours. What's interesting is that all the GCN presenters, myself, Conor, Alex, Ollie, and yes, even Dan, all use the platforms in different ways. So if you're already a Zwifter, let us know in the comments section which GCN presenter you're most like in terms of Zwifting. Clearly, no one would be like Conor in real life.
Oh, what's that steaming stuff?
And if you're new to the platform, then hopefully you'll find some tips, some suggestions, and maybe even a bit of inspiration.
Hello, and welcome to the House of Chaos. If you're brave enough, do come in, and I'll show you what I get up to on Zwift and my Zwift setup. First, we need a coffee. Now, I've always used Zwift, even when I was a pro actually, but right now it's become even more key. My father, I've got 3 mad children, and it's been so important just for being able to manage and build my fitness on the bike for certain things we've got coming up on the channel. I'm lucky enough to have a Zwift Ride Smart Bike, and I had to check if I was allowed to say this, but it's been a game changer because previously, bikes weren't allowed in the house. Okay, so this is the Zwift setup. The Zwift Ride has been, as I said, it's been brilliant for me because I'm not bringing dirty, greasy bikes into the living room. This has got a much smaller footprint too, so it fits in a tighter space. But the major bonus for me is that it's adjustable, so I can use it and also Stacey can use it too. So one bike for 2 people, and for all these reasons, it's meant I've allowed to somehow swindle a full Zwift setup in the living room without getting in trouble. So this has become a proper family staple. And when I do find myself jumping on, pretty much always my go-to is a race. I just look out for them and I get on the start line. It's the competition which really motivates me and always has done. And what's key with Zwift is that when you do jump into a race, thanks to Zwift's racing score, you're put up against people of similar abilities. So the platform takes things like your power numbers, your weight and other things, put it into a secret kind of algorithm, and then that will give you a category or a racing score. So when you do line up on the start line, you're riding against the right kind of sort of people who aren't going to push you too hard, or that race is going to be too easy. So at the end of it, if you hang into the finish, you just get a proper, like, decent session done. And I find I always come back for more. I'm always motivated to keep on pushing and keep on coming back. And that's what really inspires me to ride when I'm indoors on the bike. Just a warning too, this is the living room, so I've heard the door go. The chaos is coming home. Hey Bon, how was ballet? You okay? It's pissing down, isn't it? Zwift racing and supplying white noise. Got a slight curveball, but we're dealing with it. Have to do a little sprint, Tucker, 1 second. There we go. Yeah?
Get your towel.
Get the towel, sorry. Using the towel? You've had enough in there. All right.
So, what do I actually do on Zwift? Well, like most important life decisions, it's one that I make whilst drinking fresh coffee. So, while drinking my freshly made hot beverage, I will peruse the menu of Zwift, so to speak, try and decide whether I do an event, a certain route, or a specific workout. But the decision to actually ride on Zwift started probably the day or a few days before, mostly to decide what kind of time constraints I have on each day, or whether it's due to actually be raining or not. Because believe it or not, I am the guy that hates riding in the rain so much, I made an entire video about it. But when it comes to choosing, I'm kind of really looking at the time I've got available to me and the type of workout or route that makes me feel inspired to want to do Zwift, because at no point can I force myself to do something that my heart's really not in. Normally, the way that I approach it is to use the section which categorizes the different workouts by the duration of them, because like most people, time is the biggest constraint that we have. And then when I'm doing that, I simply look at the workout which I feel like is achievable for me, but also I'm trying to think about what it is I'm trying to achieve, if that makes sense. Like if I want to do like something to improve my climbing, I'll try and choose a workout that's got longer duration intervals that work at a slightly lower power, but are going to improve that. Whereas if I want to improve my sprints, well, I simply look at doing something that has sprints inside it. I don't tend to do that many races at the moment, but when I get right into Zwift and I feel like I've got my fitness to a level that I feel a bit more confident in, that's when I'll start to chuck some races into the mix. Because trust me, it doesn't matter what category of race it is, what time of day you do it, how good you're feeling, races are tough. When it comes to the actual process of riding on Zwift, well, my setup is pretty damn impressive. Let me go show you. So this is my Zwift setup, or pain cave, so to speak. Now you'll notice there's two bikes set up here, not because I'm super elaborate and like to choose between two different setups, but because normally when I ride Zwift, I also ride Zwift at the same time as Chloe, my wife. Now, having the two setups is obviously brilliant because we can both do it at the same time. And that really helps with our motivation, because one day when you might not be feeling it, the other person is like, oh, come on, we can smash a good workout and get it done. It really helps sort of, I don't say hold you accountable, but gives you that added bit of motivation when otherwise it would perhaps be too easy to sit on the sofa. Now, that having the Zwift ride here is actually something super new to our household and isn't a luxury that we've had for very long. And so far, since having the Zwift ride, Chloe seems to have claimed it to be hers more times than I've been able to ride it myself. So lucky for her, but I haven't exactly had to slum it over this side riding my brand new Orbea, which still has the Dan Lloyd name sticker on it after we use it for the hill climb champs, because I've not taken it off. I thought it was fun to leave it on there. We also then get to have a fight as to who uses the big screen, because generally we just run Zwift off our laptops and then that connects straight up to the Wi-Fi. Happy days.
As many of you will know, Zwifting was a key part of my preparation ahead of the Gravel World Championships this year, at a point when I was struggling a little bit with my motivation. So I did 2 group workout sessions per week for 6 weeks leading up to the event. And I've got to say, it was a bit of a game changer for me because A, it made it much easier for me to get on my bike in the first place, and B, it made it much easier to complete even the most brutal workouts because I was doing them with other people.
Personally, I love the data aspect on Zwift. I don't do many races, but whenever I jump on, I tend to do a specific session. There are very few variables when you're training indoors compared to out, so I can do exactly what I want to do in the time frame in which I need to do it, and then compare to previous performances to make sure I'm going in the right direction.
This winter though, I'm going to be doing an experiment. So I'm going to go back to the gym more and do more running whilst the weather outside is not the best for riding bikes. But I'm going to do 1 session per week on Zwift, focusing on VO2 max intervals. The idea being to see how much of my riding form I can maintain with just that 1 session per week. And you never know, I might be able to persuade other people to do that with me as well. In fact, I'll ask you now, do you fancy doing 1 VO2 max session per week with me? I'll do it during work hours, of course.
Welcome to my pain cave, which is actually our spare room / office. Anyway, indoor training for me has a bunch of different benefits, but there's a couple of key things that I've done over the last couple of years which have seen me make big improvements on the bike.
Now I know what you're thinking. I don't live somewhere hot. I don't need to heat train. Or maybe it's, I live somewhere hot. I don't need to heat train. Or my personal favourite, I'm not a pro. I don't need to heat train, it's just marginal gains. 5 to 8% improvement is not marginal. I could train all year and not see that kind of gain on my FTP. But don't just take my word for it. A study by Lorenzo et al. Got trained cyclists to complete tests looking at their maximal aerobic power and their time trial performance. And they did these tests in both cool environments and hot environments. And they had to do them before and after a 10-day heat acclimation. Now, the results of this were that the heat acclimation improved their performance. They improved their VO2 max by 5% in cool conditions and by 8% in hot conditions. And their time trial performance improved by 6% in cool conditions and by 8% in hot conditions. And personally, I've seen gains similar to this, and I've been improving even though I'm now 40. And I'm still getting PBs on long climbs. So how do I do heat training? Well, what I'll typically do is an interval session with structured intervals combined with cooling. And then on the end of that, I'll bolt on a heat session. So what that typically involves is me doing my high intensity intervals and getting my core temperature raised up. And then once I've done those, I'll jump off the turbo, turn the fans off, put the heat suit on, and jump back on the turbo and do the heat work. Now, you don't want to combine your high intensity intervals with heat because they'll be at a lower quality and it's just really hard to do. Plus, you don't need to do that. To get the adaptation from heat training, you can ride at a low intensity. It can even be zone 1. So when I start my heat block, after my intervals, I'll typically start that in zone 2, and then as I get hotter and hotter, it'll probably drop down to zone 1. And the optimum amount of time for that heat block is about 40 minutes, if you can sustain that time in the zone. The other way that I've made big improvements is by doing those aforementioned structured intervals. Now, what I do depends on what I'm training for and where I'm at within my sort of training plan. And it's all about specificity generally. If I'm training for longer climbs, I'll be doing longer efforts. But most recently, I was preparing for the National Hill Climb, which was going to be a sub 3-minute effort. So my training reflected that. The intervals that I was doing were typically between 1 and 3 minutes to help improve my short duration power. And I saw some massive improvements in just over a month. So in about 4.5 weeks, I went from doing 422 watts for 3 minutes to 483 watts for 3 minutes, which for me was absolutely massive. That was 7 watts per kilo. And I know Tadej Pogačar can do that for 30 minutes, but for me, that was really good.
And what about me? Well, if you were watching GCN in about 2020, you'd be very familiar with my house, but I've moved since then, taken on a bit of a project, and my bike room is now in the cellar. So you've got to be brave, all right? There we go. The choice of decor is not mine, I should stress. This is sort of inevitably going to be the last room to get finished. Incidentally, that on the ceiling there, I think it used to spell fun, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm lucky enough to have a Zwift ride set up elsewhere in the house. Down here, this is the pain cave, because nobody can hear you scream. Or more to the point, actually, no one can hear you ride, because it's got a very thick concrete floor and very thick walls indeed. And I'll be honest, I normally ride my road bikes, actually on the trainer down here. So, all bear today? Yes, please. Over the years, what I do / have done on Zwift has actually changed quite a lot. So a while ago, it was all about Zwift racing. All about Zwift racing. I then sort of drifted away from it a little bit. I'm not entirely sure why, but certainly after I interviewed Dr. Inigo San Millan about Zone 2 training, I began to use Zwift a lot more for Zone 2. It makes total sense, right? You can just sit at exactly the right power output and there's nothing to interrupt you. No traffic, no junctions, no lights. It's incredibly time efficient. And I do still do Zone 2 rides on Zwift from time to time, but much less frequently. Now, Zwift is kind of like my bonus ride each week. So I ride to and from work, it's about 5 hours a week, and then I've got a ride on a Saturday morning with my mates, and then I try and squeeze in a Zwift session as well. And then what I actually do really then just depends on how tired I am. If I can, I will ride up Alp to Zwift. That is my absolute staple. I love this, weirdly. Now, I will either ride up at sweet spots, just one long interval, or I have a killer workout, which I love. Now, this was actually given to me by my old mate, Ollie ex-pro mountain biker, blooming good one at that, and now coach. He pointed out that if you alternate between doing the road between each hairpin, either easy or hard, you get the most amazing over-under workout. But all the intervals are different lengths, either recovery or effort. But if you do the first one, i.e. between the start and hairpin 1 as your hard interval, it all works out perfectly. And you know what? He's absolutely bang on. So how hard you ride the hard bits and the easy bits kind of tailors the workout to you. But my favorite is to do VO2 max on the hard ones and then Zone 3 on the easy ones. And it's pretty brutal. A bit depends on how long out the Zwift takes you. But for me, it is just the ultimate session. So if I've got the energy for that one, that's the one I do. I'd be super interested to hear your thoughts, so get involved in the comment section down below. Maybe not my choice of footwear. They're really warm, by the way, and they don't ever leave the house, so it's fine that they look the way they do. And as I said at the start, I'd be really interested to know which GCN presenter you think you are most like whilst riding on Zwift. If anyone does hill reps up to Zwift, over-unders, I'll be surprised. But give it a try. It's good.